Welcome everyone here in this sanctuary and everyone who is joining us online. I'm Reverend Bill Sinkford, and I'll be your transitional minister through this next coming year. Each of us is a pilgrim on a personal journey. We gather to remind ourselves that we do not travel alone. We gather in search of a peace that grows from justice and a hope that is fueled by joy. Welcome to this diverse, spirit-growing, justice-seeking, beloved community of all souls. Come now, and let us worship. In this sanctuary of the Spirit, we light our chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
We invite you now to join in singing our opening hymn. It is not found in your hymnal because it is just a simple mantra, Om Shanti. The choir will introduce it for you, and then they will start to add layers, and you can join in your own layers or continue to sing the simple mantra. Welcome, everyone.
A good summer morning, all souls. Hello, I am Chuck Wooldridge. My pronouns are he and him. I am a member of your Board of Trustees and actively involved in the Heiwa Peace Project and the Hiroshima Children's Drawing since 2005. You will hear much more about this throughout our service today. Welcome to a community where our search for spirituality and our passion for social action are joined, where reverence for the earth and belief in the dignity of every person informs our ethics, where our music is an expression of our joy, the acts of justice are a symbol of our hope. Welcome to this place where all people of all races, national origins, creeds, genders, identities and expressions, sexual orientations, ages, and disabilities, where all people are welcome at the table of love and fellowship. We again gather here in the sanctuary and remotely from various locations around the greater capital region and from around the world. Regardless if you're a lifetime or long-time member or this is your first time, you are welcome here. If you are here today for the first time or the first time in a while, I'd invite you now to raise your hand and wave or make yourself known as you are able. Yeah. Welcome. For today's order of service, you can click on the link in the chat or ask to receive one from an usher. To stay up to date on our upcoming offerings of this church community, please read the weekly church bulletin. It's typically released on Fridays via email. If you're not currently subscribed to receive the weekly bulletin, you can sign up via our church website, or you can click on the link in the chat If you're here in the sanctuary, we ask that you not also log onto the service via Zoom because it creates feedback. Life has changed over the last 2 years. The way in which we worship as a community and how we engage with one another has evolved as well. Our traditional greeting has become a beholding in person and virtually. At this time, if you are joining us online, I encourage you to turn on your video and scroll through the gallery view. Although you'll remain on mute, please exchange smiles, waves, chats as you draw strength and joy from the gallery of faces, both old and new. For those of you who are here in this sanctuary with us, I encourage you to get up and move around and to greet one another in a manner that is comfortable for you and for the others around you. Let us greet one another now. Thank you, and let's continue our conversations and greetings after the service.
This Sunday, we solemnly mark the 77 years since the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima in 1945. From that distant tragedy, a connection between All Souls and Hiroshima was created by the power of children's artwork to create hope in the midst of despair. The Hiroshima Children's Drawings. Following the service today, the All Souls Haywood Project will host a viewing of these drawings, as Chuck said, on the lower level here at the church, and share this beautiful story of reconciliation. Mel Hardy, who is here, and Jen Heyman want to share other opportunities to engage with this exhibit and with this long-standing part of the life of All Souls Church.
I would normally second myself to Jen Heyman, your Director of Music and Arts here, because she is a giant in our midst. And thank you all. Chuck has mentioned the Haywood Peace Project that we have here, and its start originated with some of the founding members. Judith Bauer will speak today, and Chuck is here. And in many ways, for some of the work that I'm privileged to do, representing this church and representing what I call the power and prowess of the arts, culture, and humanities participants, we will lift our holdings of the Hiroshima Children's Drawings, which have worldwide recognition and is really a part of the signature of this church's social justice ministry. One of the announcements that we make today is with the exhibition that is jointly done by the Phillips Collection with participation by All Souls Church in our personage, and so we honor that. I would also say that I have the privilege of also presenting our children's drawings at the United Nations in a special event during the Non-Proliferation Treaty talks, and I'll get information about that again. So thank you very much for allowing this.
I'll just add that the start of this project that came to be at the Phillips Collection actually sort of initiated here at All Souls. Before Dr. David Driscoll passed away, I had the privilege of meeting him and talking with him and helping with the help of Mel and the Peace Pilgrims to create a beautiful project here called Hiroshima, an Introspective, which was all about how, yes, we are honoring the 77th anniversary of this tragedy, but we are also in the midst of living through and trying to cultivate more peace within ourselves, within our nation, within our world. And so I think that I'm really excited about the choir's participation in this event at the Phillips Collection. We won't be singing there until October 27th, but it will be something that brings in our own current accountability and our current introspection about peace in the world as part of this greater conversation surrounded by the Hiroshima Children's Drawings and Jacob Lawrence's Hiroshima series of paintings. So please be on the lookout for more information about that. Like I said, mark your calendars, October 27th. Thanks so much.
There are also some opportunities for service here at All Souls that I want to note for you all. We are looking for friendly, welcoming, and even chatty folks to serve as greeters for our worship services, both online and here in the sanctuary. For those who attend worship online on Sunday, we need helpers willing to stay on the Zoom after the service to host the virtual coffee hour. This would involve welcoming everyone, greeting newcomers, and encouraging conversation should it start to falter, which I think is quite unlikely. You're welcome to sign up as often as you feel able to handle this assignment. And we're also looking for in-person greeters and ushers for Sunday services here in the sanctuary. You'll be the face of All Souls for visitors and become a valued member of our welcoming team. For both opportunities, both online and here in person, reach out to Rose Eaton, our communications manager, or just let any staff member know that you're interested. There are also a few positions open for worship associates, folks who serve in the role that Chuck is serving, that Judith Bauer will be helping with later in the service. We're looking for a few individuals who feel the call to help the Spirit move in this sanctuary. If participating up here sparks interest in you, please contact me or any of our ministers to explore that possibility. And finally, we have been so thrilled that so many individuals and families have been visiting. There's so many of you here this morning. It was great to see you raise your hands. And for you, we especially want to invite you to learn more about All Souls Church and Unitarian Universalism. You can join membership manager Gary Penn right after this service in the Longfellow room that's upstairs in the body of the church for an informal conversational introduction to All Souls Church Unitarian. This is the time in our service when we also share the joys and sorrows of members of this community and mark the passages of our lives. And there is one passage to name this morning. Former longtime member Geraldine Hargrave died on July 28th. She was 90 years old. We hold Geraldine and all who knew and loved her in our hearts, and there are no plans yet for memorial service, but we'll announce that as they become clear. We also know that there are many other sorrows and many joys that we have brought with us into this sanctuary. We make space to hold all of those as well. Will you join me now in prayer? Spirit of life, Spirit of love, great mystery at the heart of things. We hold in our hearts all those who are hurting today, those suffering losses and the horrors of war, those hungry, those houseless, those hurting in body or in spirit. There is so much hurt in our world, so much hurt in ourselves that calls for reconciliation and repair. Prayers for healing and the end of violence, those prayers flow from us first. Compassion is the first stop on our pilgrim journey. Compassion is the first, but courage is the second. We know that answering the call of love requires more than simple prayer. Great Spirit, help us be present to this journey, to the compassion we must somehow maintain in the face of all the violence, but also to the passion and the courage and the commitment needed to create change. Help us hold both compassion and commitment in our hearts. Spirit of life, that we know by many names and by no name at all. Spirit of love that we struggle to trust. Be with us. help us remember our deepest knowing. Not only that love is a choice, but that any other choice leaves us bereft and empty. Help us make our journey one that points toward hope and wholeness as we strive to build a community worthy of being called beloved. Blessed be. Ashe and Amen.
The journey.
You can take your mask off.
Oh, okay. The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice. Though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind. The stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds. And there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.
Thank you so much, Judith. As she makes her way back, I'd like to do one more announcement. Could we give a hail and hearty welcome to the Reverend Belle Sinkford? Bill was with us all last year as minister in residence and joins us, that was part-time, a week a month, from Portland, Oregon, and now joins us full-time for the year. And it is fantastic to have him on board on this, on this first Sunday, he had a choice of either preaching or welcoming himself, so I was trying to address that. Before we move into my reflection, I wanted to offer some images, some slides from Iona, a place that is almost impossible to describe and is such a land of visual beauty. So we're going to move through a few slides and Jen will play something lovely underneath. Just take in the visuals first. Hello, all souls, my beloved community. It is good to be back. Pronouns she, her. I thank you for being here today. My journey to Scotland is still very much percolating, we could say. Home only 2 days, still a little disoriented. I'm digesting that kind of transformative experience and finding my way home. I'm a wee bit jet-lagged. The words are swirling. My sleep is still disrupted. So bear with me as I sketch out. A pilgrim is to travel in a particular way. It is declaring yourself a seeker, open to the unknown. When you say yes to a trip that's called a rewilding journey to an ancient spiritual site with a group of 12 other women, it is bound to get you in some kind of trouble. Yes, it did. Our wonderful leader, Mary DeYoung of Waymarkers in Seattle, warned that the gatekeepers would arrive at the beginning. And there was a summer of 2022 travel hubbub that was fierce. The canceled flights, the lost luggage. I never had my main bag for the entire trip. The confusion of planes, trains, buses, ferries in a land where people are speaking in this odd Scottish way that is practically incomprehensible at times. We were all traveling a tad off-center. We were going into unfamiliar territory where people knew we must proceed. And yet we were peering into the midst of some uncertainty with a little anxiety, joining a group we didn't know well for a week of shared accommodation, close quarters, and a series of events designed to take you deeply inward with significant physical challenges. What could possibly go wrong? And yet, pilgrimage is unsettling. It is a risk and a leap of faith. It doesn't just apply to a trip to Iona, of course. You have been in similar murky waters of change in your life, travel-related or not. Perhaps it was due to a serious health challenge, which will rock your world. Maybe it was the sad death of a family or friend. Maybe a significant change, the ending of a relationship or moving into retirement. We might even say that the entire 2.5-year pilgrimage of pandemic was an unsettling journey that continues. There are these open-ended questions and the learning of endless new steps, and the feeling that the road has shifted forever with all the recalibrating, recalculating. Mary Oliver's poem, The Journey, is a beautiful description of any key choice point when change feels imperative. One day you finally knew it was already late enough and a wild night. And little by little, you left their voices behind, and there was a new voice, one which you slowly recognized as your own. Your inner voice emerges. You're finding this, at first, hesitant rhythm, and it then compels you forward, bit by bit by bit. So our courageous group of pilgrims arrived, showed up, settled in, and we worked with Mary DeYoung's beautiful daily themes. Arriving to your longing. Celtic spirituality, sacred saints, stories, and soil. The heroine's journey and the gift of grief. Eco-theology, reading the land. Rewilding as soul practice. The day of sacred silence and the treasure. Did I mention this was not casual tourism? We were ready as we would ever be, and yet always somewhat unprepared for this kind of journey into the deeper archetypes and inner transformation that such a journey brings. The Isle of Iona, as you saw, is stunning land, and the seascape has this open, vast view. Iona emerged from the burst of a supernova, a geologist told our group. And so all the minerals that exist are present there in many stone formations, and some are 2.6 billion years old. We walked for many miles. Oh, so many miles, people, more than I knew I was signing up for. We participated in this intense group learning and dialogue. We took a choppy ferry over to the ancient Isle of Staffa and saw these basalt columns and deep caves and puffins, hundreds of puffins. I was about this far away as they flew in to feed their young. We enjoyed a very chilly early morning yoga on the beach. We got to know a magical place more intimately, in close observation, in a kind of sensory experience that allowed nature to lead and teach. And in the process, we each encountered some kind of lament. A lament which was tied to the initial yearning that led you to say yes to pilgrimage in the first place. We had said yes to travel to new places, and yet I found that the journey in the internal territories required the most courage, required the most fortitude. And Iona seems to bring this out in people. The spare, the striking elements take you down to the bedrock, to the core of who you are. And on our group day of the heroine's journey, we each walked solo, one by one, in a descent into St. Columba's Bay after hours of walking and deep reflection. And the invitation was to encounter the gift of grief. For me, that grief had accumulated gradually over 2.5 years in being present as a minister and a spiritual director, and being witness to so much change and so much suffering. And then it was compounded by my own year of serious injury in the broken ankle and the subsequent long rehab. I wasn't prepared for this part. This is what you don't know you were signing up for. It seems I had been holding a lot in, perhaps just to keep going and to get through, perhaps like some of you, and maybe because it takes some deeper time and space to release. I was dubious, and yet it was a gift of grief, to let it flow and to feel the spaciousness that came when it had moved through. I came to Iona expecting a more solo, contemplative process where I'd be writing and cordial and friendly, but not that connected to other people. That had been my goal. Yet the group work moved me so powerfully. We graciously tended one another, and we were encouraged by a most amazing group of fellow travelers, one of those groups that clicks right away and stays deep. We were changed collectively by the land and the sea, by Mother Earth, and by our wild encounters in this interdependent web of existence. Our trip designer, Mary DeYoung of Waymarkers, wrote, The holy island of Iona offers herself through the power of place. This wee island that exists at the edge of it all has also simultaneously been the historic hub of Celtic spirituality. And through this lens, we will experience what it means to experience a thin place, a place where the distinctions between this world and the other dissolve, practicing what Carl Jung meant when he said, "I am all for walking in two worlds at once. After all, we have two legs." We will follow the thread of story and myth, Mary said, as a portal to access our own wild imagination. For what you ask for, people. All sacred places may shape us in unexpected ways and bring us in touch with what matters most. And one strong example is in the life of Reverend George Mcleod, who is founder of the current Iona community that is a worldwide group of practitioners. He was a Church of Scotland visionary who helped rebuild the ruins of the central Iona Abbey that you saw. And he saw his ministry as a renewal of a wider thing, the spirituality of St. Columba, who in the Celtic Christian vision that was present since the 6th century on Iona, Scotland, Ireland, and other Gaelic sites, held a deeper interwoven spirituality. These practices are interwoven with all creatures and the elements. They are inclusive and universalist. They are welcoming of women's leadership. They have great reverence for the earth. And the frame emerged directly from the Druids, who were present before Christianity and before Roman Christianity ever arrived on the shores. Celtic practice was seen later as a direct threat to this expanding Roman Christian empire, and the leaders were pushed back hard by the dominant Roman vision and officially just shut right down at the Synod of Whitby in the year 664. Humanity and the planet lost so much at that ecclesiastical dominant power juncture as we moved into the faith of empire. Reverend John Philip Newell's book, which is Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul, explores 9 different key figures in Celtic spirituality that are valuable for our own times, including George Mcleod. And Newell wrote this: George Mcleod was a Celtic prophet in 20th century Scotland who lived the way of compassion. He saw that the spiritual is to be found deep in the physical, and that heaven is to be served in the material needs of humanity and the earth. Spirituality, therefore, took the form of caring for the planet and the lives of families struggling to live, with homelessness, with illness, with hunger, in the slums of Scottish cities and in communities throughout the world. And for Mcleod, it also took the form of nonviolence, he said. Not only nonviolence of action, but nonviolence of the heart. Reverend Mcleod had a striking response to the bombing of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, that was so very similar to Reverend A. Powell Davies, who stood in this pulpit and also decried the bombing. And their principled reactions were controversial, as clergy who felt this utter devastation was horrific and a crime against humanity. They each spoke forcefully from a kind of inner fire that propelled a compassionate public witness in the face of deep and wide destruction, and the kind of rejoicing that led to a photo on the front of the Washington Post of 2 generals and their wives celebrating with a mushroom cloud cake. Mcleod was on Iona in the Abbey that day, and he was celebrating the Christian feast of the Transfiguration, which is about the transformation of matter. And he later reflected with these words, August 6th is the day when we happened to drop the bomb at Hiroshima. We took God's body and we took God's blood and we enacted a cosmic Golgotha. We took the key to love and we used it for bloody hell. And meanwhile, our Christian civilization, without church protests, made its assertion of the complete divorce between spirit and matter. One man noticed, Mcleod wrote, and when the word came through to Washington of the dropping of the atom bomb with the words, mission accomplished, Dr. Oppenheimer, who was in large degree in our name, its architect, was heard to say, today the world has seen sin. Perhaps the remarkable worlds of water on Iona, that very clear turquoise that is mixed with indigo blue, the rolling sieves, the driving rain, bring out a still, small inner voice which compels action. You may encounter your own deepest self in the core knowing that makes evasion difficult to maintain. You may come to the mirror of your own spirit in those waters and experience a profound rest in the beauty of the landscape and the peace of the land. You knew what you had to do, as Mary Oliver put it, as you strode deeper and deeper into the world. This is not a place to retreat forever, Mcleod would say, no matter how alluring and compelling the oasis. Iona is a refuge where you may encounter your inner calling in a deeply inconvenient way. It provides that opportunity for clear seeing, ready or not, like it or not. And the earth and the sea and the island are speaking to you. And if you listen, you will be moved and changed. We all need some deep retreat in these tumultuous times in order to seek the clarity of a focused voice. And you need not go all the way to Scotland. Perhaps you never will or never could. It is a deep privilege to be able to go, and I'm humbled by the gifts and graces of those who made it possible for me. There are very simple, wild places near each of us, wherever we are located, that offer encounters with nature and spiritual experience. It could be the plants and the animals and the children in our own homes. It might be the tree outside your window. They offer precious avenues to connect to the earth, to earth guidance, which humans must receive in order to survive our own limitations and our unending harm. And so the fire which comes from within comes in many forms as well. Perhaps you are not a preacher or a teacher, you have no social media platform or microphone, and yet your own passion and commitment that springs forth from that essential being is an offering that is needed. There are a million offerings needed, and your spark within, the desire to combine your great joy with the world's deep hunger, is calling, as Frederick Buechner told us. We are all in process. We are holy works in progress. And some days I am asked to stand up here and say something about the journey. And so I wonder, where is the water that calms your spirit and helps you find your own clear inner voice? And what is the fire of commitment in you in these perilous times of great possibility for and with this earth right now in your lifetime? I close with the words of Mcleod in her poem, Tourist or Pilgrim, as we feel the earth around us in the steamy Sunday of Washington, D.C., or wherever you are. I stand at the edge of myself and I wonder, where is home? Or where is the place where beauty will last? And when will I be safe? And where? My tourist heart is wearing me out. I am so tired of seeking for treasures that tarnish. And how much longer, O Lord? Oh, which is the way home? My luggage is heavy. It is weighing me down, and I am hungry for the holy ground of home. And then suddenly, overpowering me with the truth, a voice within me gently says, there is a power in you, a truth in you that has not yet been tapped. You are blinded with the blindness that is deep, for you have not yet loved the pilgrim in you. There is a road that runs straight through your heart. Walk on it. To be a pilgrim means to be on the move slowly, to notice your luggage becoming lighter, to seek for treasures that do not rust, to be comfortable with your heart's questions, and to be moving toward the holy ground of home with empty hands and bare feet, and yet you cannot reach that home until you have loved the pilgrim in you. One must be comfortable as a pilgrim before one's feet can touch the homeland. Do you want to go home? There's a road that runs straight through your heart. Walk on it. May this be so for each of us. Blessed be, and amen.
I joined All Souls in 2002, and in 2005, I became involved in the Hiroshima Children's Drawings, now part of the Heiwa Peace Project. I've engaged in a lot of committees here at All Souls, but it's the Heiwa Project carrying forward the prophetic work of Reverend A. Powell Davies that has continuously inspired and challenged me. I am grateful for memories, experiences, and connections to the many wonderful souls who are making this work possible in this congregation. I am grateful to have placed a commemorative wreath with All Souls members at the cenotaph of the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park. The inscription on the cenotaph reads, "Let all the souls here rest in peace, for we shall not repeat the evil." Struck by seeing the words, "all the souls," we recognize that these were the same souls inscribed on our own table here in the sanctuary where we place the chalice every Sunday. I am grateful that more than 50 All Souls members who made the pilgrimages to Hiroshima continue to ask themselves, what are we called to do so this evil of nuclear war is not repeated? What is our responsibility for removing the causes of war and conflict in our own lives, our communities, and our world? I am grateful to have sung Amazing Grace with All Souls members and Hiroshima school children who were playing flutes crafted from the wood of a tree having survived the atomic bomb. I am grateful to the dozens of All Souls families opening up their homes in radical hospitality to our Japanese friends and partners in this work. I am grateful we accompanied our guests from Japan in the difficult task to see the Enola Gay at the Air and Space Museum and to visit the Japanese American Memorial. We witnessed their sorrow, their anguish, their questions. Finally, my heart is full of gratitude that this week's RE activity is the spiritual practice of peacemaking, where our children are remembering our Heiwa visitors from Japan and folding peace cranes for the Cranes for Our Future initiative for nuclear disarmament. I financially support All Souls because it is a church that when it says all souls, it can imagine a love and justice large enough to extend across the Pacific and the Atlantic and to all lands. It is a church that, because of the drawings made by children in Hiroshima over 75 years ago, can imagine a world free of nuclear weapons and is willing to ask today, what can we do to advance that goal? Let an offering now be taken to support this beloved community. The ushers will pass the plates in the sanctuary. If you are on Zoom, the link in the chat will direct you to the All Souls online giving page. You may also text ASCU or 73256 to make your offering. I thank you for your generosity.
Rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn. It can be found in your gray hymnal number 6, Just As Long As I Have Breath. And I'll just make this announcement now. For those of you who have a printed order of service, there's a change to the benediction in music. It is Jason Shelton's The Fire of Commitment.
thank you for accompanying me in the reflective meandering post-journey on pilgrimage. It is a joy to be here with you and to have held you in my heart as I traveled. And now, in this moment, will you say yes to life, to whatever that might mean for you, in the smallest, kindest step that you can take? Say yes to love. Go in peace and return as we build a beloved community together. Amen.